let her introduce herself. She is one of the coolest people around.
Okay, so my name's Krysten Loaiza.
He has like set so many things up for us, and we are just so quick to like look past them.
I had to listen to people that had the fruit on the tree that I wanted.
If you are good stewards of a little,
It's going to draw him or her closer to their purpose.
Okay, we're recording now. And okay, so hey everybody, I'm just gonna do a little intro and then we'll just jump into it. Hey guys, welcome back to Post. Today I'm super excited because I have one of my really good friends here, Krysten Loaiza, and I'm just gonna let her introduce herself. She is one of the coolest people around. I her, and yeah, she's just got it going on. So I'll let her just kind of introduce herself, what she does.
Okay, so my name's Krysten Loaiza. Good job for getting the name right. I always tell people I do a lot of things. First and foremost, I am a small town girl. I come from a very small town, but I have some big dreams, big ambitions. And I'm a fitness instructor, which is where we met at Cycle Bar. So I love doing that. Just love making people feel good and making them a better version of themselves. And then I also help my husband with his production company. We do photography, videography, all the fun things. And then we also have a leadership platform where we just teach people how to chase their dreams, build businesses. So lots going on, but love every single minute of it. And I'm so glad to be on today.
Oh, that's so cool. Yes, Krysten is so cool, and so we met at Cycle Bar, and so cool, and I'm so glad we did. But yeah, she's very cool. She does a little bit of everything, which is why I think it's so cool, because I feel like we've talked about this before, because Kristen's like, I feel like we're like the same person. I'm like, I feel like you're me in like 5 years.
Yeah.
So how I start every podcast episode is, what has been the best season of your life and why?
So I feel like that's pretty simple for me, especially right now, because I feel like I'm still in a newlywed season. We're past the first year, but I mean, I feel like you're a newlywed until like 5 years in. And if you ever get out of the newlywed stage, then like, what is marriage? You know, like I always want to be in the newlywed phase of my marriage. But I feel like that's been the most fun season for me, just because like dating is fun. I loved dating my husband, but I don't know, it just becomes so special when you get to live with your best friend and you get to do everything together, make decisions together. And it's not always easy, but I feel like I've grown and learned and like really become the person that I'm supposed to be in this season of my life. So, and I know it's only the beginning, but I love being married, and it's 100% been the best season of my life so far.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. And also too, what's cool is you literally kind of touched on like what I really wanted to talk about today, and you said you feel like you're really stepping into the person that you're supposed to be. So today I kind of, more like a guided subject, but not necessarily have to stay like on this topic, but just kind of like, I really wanted to talk about how to step into what God has for you, / what does it look like once you have stepped into it. Because I feel like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, like I know this is what God has for me, like this is my next step in life. But then we also, once we take one step in, I feel like people are like encouraging you. You're like, yeah, go do this. And then as soon as you step into it, well, what do I do now? So kind of like the post side of how to step into what God has for you and then stay in that, you know? So with the stuff that you and your husband do, and how did you know, like certain steps that you've taken in your life, like how did you know that this is what is your next step?
So for me, I always tell people, like, I feel like when you're stepping into what you're supposed to do, it's never like, well, I'm not going to say never. For me, it wasn't like shining bright lights, like pointing arrow, like this is what you're supposed to be doing. For me, I think it was more so, I truly feel like God has laid out the steps of your life. before you were born, like obviously he knew everything that was going to happen. And it's almost like there's big blocks that, okay, this is the next step. This is the next step. This is what's going to draw him or her closer to their purpose. And for me, I look back on my life and everything that ever happened was drawing me closer to where I am now and the person that I'm supposed to be today. But in those seasons, I mean, I'll go ahead and tell you, in some of those seasons, I felt so lonely and so just like, God, is this really like what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, is this what you've called me to? But I met certain people in those seasons that propelled me in future seasons. So, like, one of my best friends that worked with me in a job that I absolutely hated coming out of college is the one who introduced me to Sergio. So it's just like things like that that I see God's hand in my life that drew me closer to my purpose. And stepping into the season that I'm in now, really, I feel like a lot of it happened when I met Sergio. Like he helped pull me into that purpose. It was just like a step by step thing. So, first I became a fitness instructor because it's what I love to do. I knew that that was something that I wanted to be a huge part of my life. So I stepped into that. I was still working corporately, still doing that whole thing when I was single. Met Sergio. That's when I became like really intrigued with photography, videography. I'm by no means the professional that he is, but I'm learning. So he's like my photography mentor in a way. But then all of the leadership stuff, he was also already doing that and being mentored by really successful people. And so I kind of stepped into that with him. And like husbands and wives are the ones that mentor us, and they just kind of showed us like, hey, this is how you kind of find the path for your life. And so for me, I was kind of reserved when it came to that, just because I knew that I was going to have to grow and change to become the person that I needed to be to step up beside him and actually do what I needed to do to serve people, to love people, to help lead them. And it was really scary for me. And I think those are the defining moments in life when you can either walk away from your purpose or go into it, is whether or not you let fear stop you. And I very well could have let fear say, you'll never be able to be the person that you need to be. Same for my past. Fear of speaking in front of people, because believe it or not, like even still, depending on the number of people, I will break out in hives when I talk in front of groups of people. That was something that I was going to have to overcome, and just so many things that I was going to have to overcome, that there were points in time before I really stepped into that I was like, I don't know if I wasn't that person overnight. I had to grow, I had to learn, I had to read, I had to listen to podcasts, I had to listen to people that had the fruit on the tree that I wanted.
Ooh, that's so good. That's really good. I love
just
that.
like slowly progress into the person that I knew that I was supposed to be. And in all honesty, I'm still not completely the person that I know that God wants me to be. I'm still growing and learning. And then all of the like official GVL stuff, really just found a knack for social media. And I feel like it is honestly the best way to reach people our age, that I not only get to share a little bit of who I am with them, but it gives me a wider audience to share my heart for the Lord. And does it always look like, hey, here's Jesus, like shoving it in my face?
Absolutely not.
No, but they can look at me and be like, Kristen's different. Like, she carries a joy with her that a lot of people don't carry. I wonder where that comes from.
Yeah.
And for me, that is what's so special. Like, yeah, Instagram page, whatever. Like,
Yeah. That's so cool though. I was gonna say I love what you said, how it's like it is so much I think about like the slow progression and like the slow yeses, because I don't know, we live in such a fast paced world right now that it's like if this doesn't happen like right now, then I don't want it. And it's like, but good things do take time. Like I feel like that is such a quote that is kind of testing this time right now of just like good things really do take time. Because I think about, like, I think back even to like a little bit of my story of just like how I don't think I realized I was stepping into the little yeses until like I was reflecting, like looking back and like telling one of my friends, like, because she was like, why, like, when did you start doing this or whatever? And I was like, I don't really know. It just like all kind of fell into my lap. Like, even the story of like how I got like my first camera, and like I look back and like even when I was 5, I got a little Barbie toy camera for Christmas. And so it's just so funny because I think if you slow down for a second and take time to like look back, I feel like you always are like praying for, Lord, like, how do I step into what you have for me, or how can I follow your will? But it's really, I feel like he has like set so many things up for us, and we are just so quick to like look past them
yeah.
and not like take a second and like actually look at what he has for us, or take a moment and like look at these obvious signs,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and that's so true. And you talking about that, just like, so the reason that I say, like, I look back at my life and realize, like, my steps were very orchestrated, even though I felt like lonely or confused in certain seasons, it was because I was journaling in those seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even have to be writing, it can be recording yourself. I mean, I'm sure you're going to look back at these post podcasts one day and be like, oh my gosh, like the Lord was literally orchestrating everything during
Yeah.
that season because you're talking about it. But for me, it was like writing in a journal. And every probably 6 months or so, I go back in my journal and I look at what I was writing about like the year before or 6 months before. And it just wells up so much appreciation in my heart because
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's, and I hate to keep going back to my marriage and Sergio, but like
No, that's so
I
cool.
look
I love it.
I look at our story and the day before we met, I was journaling to my future husband.
Yeah.
So
I love that so much. I think it's so cool. I think that the Lord really has so much for us if we just like ask, and I feel like we ask but then we don't wait to receive. I think you have to get to a place of contentment before you can get like something else, because
yeah,
if you are over here and you're like, oh, I'm not content and like I need someone, or, and I think that's with anything like career, and I think that like kind of all goes back to that verse in the Bible where it's like, if you are good stewards of a little, you will be blessed like with a lot, you know, because you have to be good with a little to be good with a lot. And I think that that goes for kind of just any aspect of life, like relationships, work, career, friends, anything.
yeah. And the people that mentor us always talk about like if you're not content where you're at now, you're
Yeah.
never going to be content in the next season. You know,
Mhm.
like if you're not happy and grateful and thankful for what the Lord has put in your life right now, things and stuff and people are not going to make you happy.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it comes from that like inner contentment and contentment with the Lord, like
Yeah.
having nothing or having an abundance of things.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one thing that I've noticed because it can be so easy to just like want to move on to the next season of your life
Mhm.
and know, like, hey, I want to be a mom. Like for me, I want to be a mom. I'm ready to be a mom. Like, let's just make it happen. But if I'm not content where I'm at now, being like a dog mom or just like being a wife,
Yeah.
I'm never going to be content, especially with more responsibility in my life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just one example, but even like the whole husband thing or like a job, like coming out of college, I was like, oh, I just want to be like this boss lady, working woman.
Yeah.
Um, and I wasn't content where I was. And then I moved into that season and I also wasn't content with a job, you
Yeah.
know? So it's so much about just like being happy where you're at. And that's so much
Yeah.
easier said than done.
Yep.
But for me, and I always go back to this, for me, journaling helped everything because it allowed me to put my thoughts on paper, just process what it was that I really wanted and having my vision in front of me, which ultimately led me to where I was supposed to be.
I love that. I think that that's really important because that was what I was going to ask of, like, because I want to talk about post, like, stepping into what God has for you. But I think before you can, like, cover that, you have to cover, like, how do you step into what God has for you. But yeah, I think, like, journaling is such a good, like, tip. And I think, too, of just kind of, like, I think you just have to go for it. Like, I think you have to, like, try a lot of things and kind of just like see what happens, because I know like you tried a lot of things, and even though like not everything was exactly what you wanted or where it like the right place, but everything led you to where you're supposed to be. So those like little yeses.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, like, what are we doing here? Like, there were so many jobs that I had that I just did not love. They were a blessing for the income, obviously, but I just didn't love them. And I have always had like this entrepreneurial spirit in myself, and I
Yeah.
knew that I wanted to do that. I just never knew how.
Mm.
And so for me, sitting in that season and knowing that eventually I was going to be able to walk into that entrepreneurship, which I didn't know that I needed someone by my side to do that, but I did. And that's where Sergio comes into the picture. But like post doing that, um, sometimes entrepreneurship is hard, like sometimes, and it's all about serving people, like, um, and I don't think there's anything greater than there's you won't find more joy than you'll find in serving people.
Yeah.
Is it always convenient? Is it always easy? No, absolutely not. But it's always worth it when you serve other people. And you just look at Jesus as an example. He lived his whole life either learning about the Lord, the laws, all of that, or serving other people. There's going to be people that walk in and out of your life in the post season of finding your purpose, because a lot of people think that once you like find your purpose or find what you're supposed to do with the rest of your life, that it's all like sunshine, rainbows, and butterflies.
Yeah.
And it's not always. You're going to have, I mean, life hits whatever season you're in, whether you're in your purpose or out of it. It's navigating through those times in the season of like post finding your purpose, that will propel you into the next, I guess, level of your purpose that you're supposed to be in.
That's so good. Yeah, I think it's so important that we do need to remember, like, if you are someone of faith and you are a Christian, it's like we get so caught up in ourselves, and I think that's like what the enemy does. And right now, like, I think the biggest like struggle you could kind of sum up would just be that we are so self-absorbed and we're so in our own little bubble that we forget like our actual purpose here on earth is to like literally the two greatest commands of like loving others and loving God. And so I think whether you are like, into entrepreneurship, which we both are, and we're both kind of like doing our own things right now, or if you are in, the corporate world, or if you are a stay-at-home mom, like all of those things, all of that is you stepping into your purpose. But also I think we tend to think that our jobs are like our only purpose, and I don't think that your job isn't your purpose, but it's like a way to reach people, and that is your purpose, like the people that you're going to come across.
What you just said is such a good point, and I've kind of hit it throughout our conversation, but like things and actions are never going to be your purpose. People are
Yeah.
always going to be part of your purpose.
Yeah.
So maybe you're like, I love my job and it is my purpose. The people there are your
Yeah.
purpose. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you're like, I hate my job. I want out like
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
God has you there for a reason, and it's the
Yep.
people. And I look back at even my worst days at my job, and it's the people there that I still am connected to. I guess my biggest advice would be don't get discouraged in the place that you're at, because the people that are in that phase, that season, are what's going to propel you to the next. And
Yeah.
even in the next season, you're going to remember those people.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a lot of that. Like, I feel like I've had a lot of random different seasons throughout my life, and like a lot of people have come and gone, but it's like you can look back and know that they're all there for a reason. But I think that's what's one of the coolest things about living your life and like dreaming and like having a purpose and like finding your career and how do I like step into that, is that I don't think that there is like an exact, I just hit my desk. I don't think that there's like an exact recipe for that, because it's like it's always changing. And that's what's so cool about like following the Lord and stuff like that, is that we are never done growing, you know, and like we're always going to be changing and things are always going to be changing. And so I think like accepting that there's always going to be change and being okay with that, and just being excited, and like you said literally in the beginning, of just enjoying where you're at and enjoying the journey, because that is what I think this life was truly meant to like be about, is just enjoying like exactly where you're at and knowing that where you are at right now is for a reason, and that it's not just about like, oh, let me get to retirement and have this awesome house and my kids and then have as much money as I want. Like that was never what it was meant to be about, you know?
Yeah. And the last thing that I want, and Sergio and I have both had these conversations, the last thing that we want is to be sitting in this mansion at the end of our lives, like with everything we ever wanted, things wise,
Yep.
looking at each other, being like, where's our people?
Yeah.
Like we have those conversations all the time. We do not want to make it alone. And honestly, you can't. Like, there's so many people, and this is a whole nother topic for another day, but there are so many people that are like self made, self made. No one is self made. No one. Everyone has at least one person, probably more, that helped them get to where they are. And we know that we can't make it in this life alone.
Yeah.
And so for us, when we get to the point where we're older, we don't want to be sitting in rocking chairs looking at each other watching TV.
Yep.
We want to be out there serving people that are our age now, just like that's been done for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you find true fulfillment in life.
That's so good. I agree with that. I think just, you know, living a life of like pouring into others and just growing, and yeah, just being truly about like people, because that is what matters, and stepping into your purpose is going to get you to the people that you're supposed to be with. So I guess like the last little like question thing that I want to hit on would be, but why is it important to step into what God has for us?
I think it's important to step into it because I honestly believe that you almost can't help but step into your purpose. Like God's going to get you there anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Like he foreknew, predestined your life, and that doesn't mean that we're like predestined. We make our own decisions. So
Right.
we ultimately end up where we're at because of our own decisions, but God has a plan for your life, and following that plan is what's going to bring true joy. I mean, you think about it, like the Lord, a lot of times when we don't make the right decisions, we have to fall and bump our heads, break the bone, you know. We have to fall and bump our heads and get back up and figure it out. And so it's really up to us on how long we want to be on that journey. And looking back at my own story, I'm like, and I know God had me in every season for a reason. I made every decision for a reason. But looking back, I'm like, there was a fork in the road plenty of times, and I chose the wrong direction. So I think the importance of don't get distracted. The faster that you can get on or stay on the path that the Lord has for you, the less heartache there's going to be, the less shame you're going to carry, the less you're going to have to question why. Flesh always wants what it wants, and for us. But I think as long as we're in the Word, as long as we stay strong in who we know that we're supposed to be, the path that we know that we're supposed to be on, and stay close to the Lord, He's always going to help us stay on that path. And so I think that's the most important thing. I hope that answered your question, but I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, that's so good. That's so good. And I love, like, yeah, I do really think that the Lord, like, always wants to get you to where He's going to have you. But it's I think that's when living in obedience comes into play. And it's like, you know, what are you going to miss out on, you know, if you aren't being obedient right now and we're taking, like, our own way, or, you know, but that's so good. That's so good. Yeah, I think it's just important too of, like, when you're stepping into what God has for you is to, I think some days, like, for me, like, what I'm doing, sometimes I'm like, what am I doing with my life right now? I'm like, do I actually think, like, I can do this? But I think not giving yourself enough time to think about the what ifs is healthy. Like, staying busy. So, like you said earlier, like, don't be fearful. Like, just go for it, because if it really is what the Lord has for you, like, He will make a way. And, like, you can read that in literally every chapter of the Bible. Like, so many things you're like, how is that even possible? But, like, He's going to make a way. And, like, for every person's life, He has, you know, a plan for you and something that He wants you to step into. But it's just a matter of when do you want to step into it, because as soon as you step into it, like, it might not be easy, but, like, you're going to start seeing, you know, those fruits, and, like, your life is going to start to change. And, like, you know, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Big indicator that sometimes I was on the wrong path, because there was zero peace in my life. I had zero peace in my heart whenever I was making certain decisions, or just knowing that I was on the wrong path. And I think that's the biggest reward for following what the Lord has for us, even though our flesh wants something different, is the peace that comes with it. So
yeah. Well, that was so good. Thank you so much for
inviting me on.
Yes. Thank you so much. I literally love just, like, talking with you. It's so fun.
Having these kinds of conversations, like purpose-driven conversations.
It's so fun. That is it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you are listening on Spotify, please like this podcast or follow it or save it or whatever. I don't know how you subscribe to it, but do that. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Please give it a thumbs up. Bye guys. Have a good day.